Hello, everyone. Oh, not you too, United Kingdom. Come on. I mean, trust me, I understand the pain at the pump because it's painful in the United States. And American gas had always been cheaper than British and European gas. I get it. And I suppose they're not lifting the sanctions, they're just distributing the sanctions. But still, it is kind of a really big bummer that so much of the global economy still depends on the resources, some of which are supplied by terrorist states like Russia. So, what's going on? So, instead of introducing one big packet of sanctions all at once, the British government decided to phase in the new sanctions over the course of several months. They're not calling it a waiver. Well, guys, come on. When you postpone something for any reason, it is kind of a waiver. I mean, what else do you call it? It is a waiver because this basically means that if you take this packet of sanctions against Russia as a whole, it will now not be in full force until much later. Yes? So, like it or not, it is a kind of waiver, even though the reasons are understandable. Now, Vladislav Lesuk, who is the sanctions commissioner for Ukraine, said, yes, I understand your reasoning, but he also said something that we are all thinking. Our concern relates specifically to temporary exemptions that may still generate additional revenues for Russia's war machine. And again, I know I sound like a broken record. I know I said this so many times, but Russia's oil is feeding this war. Russia's oil is making possible the kidnapping of Ukrainian children, the torture of POWs, the hundreds of drones raining on the heads of Ukrainian civilians, including my parents. That's what it comes down to. It's not going to anything useful in Russia right now. We talked about this. And again, please feel free to fact check me on this. But even Russia's lawmakers are starting to get desperate enough to basically point out no progress in any area has been made in Russia over the last 4 or 5 years. Not in science, not in education, not in infrastructure, nothing, because of this war. So this is where it's all going, ultimately. All the more reasons to strive for oil independence. The concern about attacks from the direction of Belarus, which would be Ukrainian north, if you look at the map, continue. And they should. This conversation needs to keep going. And again, look at the map. I encourage you. In general, geography is a very useful thing to know, but particularly when you're trying to understand what is going on in the world, it's really useful to know where it's going on. Belarus is not just Ukraine's neighbor. So we know it has a long eastern border with Russia. It's like Ukraine in that respect. It borders Ukraine in the south. Look what else is there. In the west, Belarus has Poland. In the northwest, Lithuania. In the north, Latvia. So Belarus has access to 3 NATO members. This should be a concern. As of right now, The government is working with Ukraine's top army commander, Syrskyi, to determine how to best arrange the troops. Because here's the thing. So we talked about the front line and the challenges associated with the sheer length of the front line. We also know that having to relocate the troops to the north and the northeast would mean weakening what we have in the east and in the south. And let's not forget, what do we have in the east? We have the Donbas region. What do we have in the south? We have access to the Black Sea and the Zaporizhia region, which is much coveted by Russia. And it is currently partially occupied by Russia. So there's definitely a lot of finagling involved in this decision. And yeah, it is frustrating that there is constantly such a threat to Ukraine, as Zelensky said, that the Russians may at some point drag Belarus into the expansion of the war. And again, if you know anything about Belarus, economically, Belarus is weaker than Russia, although right now it is not involved in the open aggression of any kind. But also politically, Belarus has been desperately trying to maintain a neutral profile, even though it is well known that President of Belarus, Alexander Lukashenko, is Putin's BFF. So, but there is a big difference between being a friend of Russia and being an active, in the war, in the meat grinder, Russian allies in the, under those conditions, under the war conditions. So we'll see where that goes. And again, I'm hoping that NATO is watching and preparing, because again, look at the map. More sources are now referring to the article I talked about yesterday, the article from Reuters about the impaired capacity of Russia's oil industry. And I can pretty much guarantee that those strikes are going to continue, especially if Ukraine actually starts actively manufacturing drones abroad and not just at home. Because factories we talked about possibly in Romania, possibly in Germany, will not be in the wartime conditions. So it's possible the production would be faster, more efficient, higher volumes, and so on and so forth. And so far, that type of weaponry proved indispensable. And yes, I'm glad that Keir Starmer has talked to Zelensky about the sanctions package. That doesn't change the fact that this could be a problem. It's a problem economically, it is a problem politically. And we'll see how that goes again. Because we already know that Trump's easing of Russia's sanctions was very unpopular. So, while the political developments are going on, there is some progress in terms of European aid to Ukraine, which is always the good news. There's a first payment being planned next month under the agreement of the 90 billion euro loan that finally went through after Orban was kicked out. And again, let's not forget, the war still continues. The bombing still continues. Civilians are still dying. People are still losing home. All of that is still going on. So every delay, every easing of sanctions, every kind of dilly-dallying for some type of bureaucratic reasons and playing at diplomacy is costing human lives. More to come.